Hello and welcome to Stories, Science and Secrets. I'm Elaine, and in just a moment you'll hear Chapter 1 of our award-winning story, Lost on Infinity. Then, after the chapter, we'll be talking about the true science and secrets behind the story and how these really are changing our world. Anyway, you don't want to hear me rabbiting on, so if you're ready, here's the first chapter of Rockford's Rock Opera's Adventure in Sound, Lost on Infinity.
In a block of flats in Battersea, in London, England, lived a boy called Moog, his mother, and a dog called Rockford. Battersea is famous for three things: its park, where Rockford liked to go for walks, the power station, whose 4 great chimneys can be seen for miles and miles, and Battersea Dog's Home, where Moog had picked Rockford out earlier that year. But as this is just the start of this adventure, and I can hear the orchestra tuning up, we shouldn't get ahead of ourselves. There is, after all, an amazing story to tell.
Every day, watching as the world goes by in my room. Crazy days, waiting as the world runs dry of good news. But then there came the glorious sound of little voices crying out loud. So roll up and we'll run the world together. Roll up and see. We won't shut up till we make it better, 'cause you can rock the world with your dreams. So roll up and we'll rock the world together. Roll up with me. We won't shut up till we make it better, 'cause you can rock the world with your dreams. You can rock the world with your belief. So come and rock the world with your dreams. And the creatures have the secret we need.
Rockford the dog was brown with a crooked tail. At first he hadn't been sure of Moog, his new owner. The family who had owned him before had got bored with him, and for a while Rockford hadn't trusted any humans. But he was fine now. Moog loved him, and so did Moog's mother. However, in a small flat, on a long winter's afternoon, a boy and a dog can get just a little bit in the way. So when an uncle comes to visit, then it's a good idea to get him to take the boy and the dog to the park, to run about and get exercise. So that's exactly what happened this winter's afternoon in Battersea. Moog liked his uncle. He had taken him to the Natural History Museum the day before, and they had looked at the dinosaurs together. They had bought a model of a T-Rex you could build out of cardboard and spent the evening making it. It was quite difficult, and in fact, when it was finished, it looked more like a crocodile trying to peer over a fence. But Moog put it on his shelf all the same.
It's amazing to think creatures like that once roamed the earth,
He said,
I'm not sure creatures exactly like that ever did,
said his mother.
but I know what you mean.
Now, as they got ready to go out into the cold, Moog and his uncle were looking forward to roaming with Rockford in a wintry Battersea park.
Make sure you take care of Rockford.
Said Moog's mother.
He likes to run off.
Of course I will.
Said the uncle, winking at Moog and grabbing a football in Rockford's lead.
Come on, you two, let's go.
As they walked together towards the park, the sky was darkening to a deep blue. To the west, the winter sun was tangerine orange and sinking down below the rooftops along Battersea Park Road. And to the east, the great grey chimneys of Battersea Power Station pointed up towards the stars that were just beginning to shine. Battersea Park was full of people, and as soon as his lead was released, Rockford ran off happily. He loved the park, and so did Moog, and when they were together, life felt better. Moog and his uncle were now kicking the football to each other, shouting bits of commentary as they did. But suddenly, when they looked round to check where Rockford was, to their alarm, he wasn't. This wasn't too serious because Rockford often ran off chasing after an interesting smell or another dog, so they assumed he'd soon reappear from behind a bush or round a fence. But he didn't. Moog's uncle's heart sank. This was exactly what he'd been told not to do.
Oh no, where is he? We must find him,
he said.
He was over there,
Said Moog.
towards the lake.
That's exactly where Rockford was. He had found a tree near the lake, which was one of his favourite places for doing what dogs do by trees. The tree had a blue carrier bag caught in its bare winter branches. It was too high for anyone to reach and had been there for ages, snapping in the wind like a flag. It meant Rockford could always remember that tree, and he thought it was special. Because when he did what dogs do by trees, the humans would always scoop it up in bags and put it carefully into strange-looking black boxes by the side of the path. Must be important, thought Rockford. Maybe it's magic. Rockford pointed his bottom down at the ground below the tree, but something wasn't right. Something felt odd. Then he heard what sounded like a squeak, so he stood up again.
Please be careful, I'm only small,
said a voice that sounded as if it was coming from his bottom. Rockford craned his head right round and began walking in a circle, trying to catch his bottom up, but he could never quite manage it. And he couldn't quite see the small, sticky yellow creature with a rough green stripe down its back that was now attached to him, although he could hear it complaining that it was now stuck to his backside.
Oh dear, I really do need to get off,
said the animal, its little yellow legs waving helplessly in the air. As Rockford walked round and round trying to see whatever it was, he began to feel dizzy. He was aware of moving closer to the side of the lake, but it was only when he felt the feel of the ground change under his paws that he stopped and looked round. There was water on every side. He was standing on what seemed to be a gigantic leaf, with its edges curled round like the sides of a boat, and with a large leafy sail, and he was now drifting out into the lake. He could hear his name being called from somewhere behind. He wanted to run back to Moog, but the shore was now quite far away.
What on earth is happening?
Said the little yellow creature, who was obviously just as confused as Rockford. Rockford didn't have a clue who this stranger attached to him was, and the little animal was certainly now well and truly stuck. But then, as if to read his mind, the small, sticky creature stared up from Rockford's bottom and said,
We're stuck because I am a Cocklebur Ick.
And as the leaf boat drifted further out into the dusky lake, and with Moog's worried cries echoing further away, the Cocklebur Ick told Rockford its story.
There were once many Cocklebur Icks. We were sticky, not pretty or quick. 'Cause people are twits. They didn't want Cocklebur Icks, for our fur was all sticky and thick, and we cried in the night in the street.
One day a man came to the Icks. He seemed kind and his smiles were all sweet. Some people aren't twits, perhaps thought the Cocklebur Icks. He'll see beauty is more than skin deep.
So why not come play for a bit?
Said the man to the Cocklebur Icks.
With your fur that will stick, quick, come to my house and we'll sit. We'll have tea and jam, raisins and sweets.
So along went the Cocklebur Icks, and they sang as they danced down the street.
for this man wasn't friendly a bit. 'Cause people are twits. He captured the Cocklebur Icks, used their fur for fastening his bits. 'Cause the coat of the Cocklebur Ick was cheaper than buttons and zips. So the tale of the Cocklebur Ick is a tale that'll make you feel sick. 'Cause people are twits. You'll never see Cocklebur Icks in the fields or the parks or the streets. The poor little Cocklebur Icks, all undone 'cause of fur that would stick. And 'cause people are twits.
What a sad story, thought Rockford. Although he knew people could be strange, all the humans he'd met recently had been very kind, and certainly not twits. But he didn't have long to wonder, because a mysterious warm breeze had now caught the leafy sail, pushing them along faster and faster. The other side of the lake was nowhere to be seen, and the water on which the little boat bobbed had become a wide blue ocean with an extraordinary coloured sky swirling and fizzing above them. And so on they travelled, to who knew where. Rockford the dog, and a small, sticky Cocklebur Ick.
So where are Rockford and the Cocklebur Ick going? And what adventures are in store for them? If you can't wait to find out, you can go straight to Story, Science and Secrets, Episode 2, now, where Lost on Infinity continues. Or you can stay here with us, because now you've heard the first part of our story, you may be wondering what the Science and Secrets bits will be like. Well, there'll be a bit of...
You, sir, you have offended the honour of my waterproof footwear, and now you must pay.
And plenty of...
Hello, Grandma.
And the occasional...
Techno. Ugfield. Techno.
And... That's my leg, sorry.
Is the cat drumming?
And this...
On board a meteor. Infected some squid, and they evolved into octopuses.
And there'll be experts too, including from the Natural History Museum. What do they think of Story, Science and Secrets?
A disgusting scene of a red-eyed fly feeding on vomit and bird poo.
Nice. And how about the guys from BBC's 1 Zoo 3?
Smells of popcorn, so they're wicked.
And anyway, even if you wanted to leave...
It's impossible. This is your home. Forever.
Goodness. Because you see, although it's only just begun, you won't have to wait long in our story for Rockford and Moog to enter an extraordinary world of amazing creatures, mind-bending science, horrid history, and secrets that are changing our world. But now I'm going to introduce Steve Punt.
Hello.
And Matthew Sweetapple, who created the Rockford's Rock Opera stories with me. So Steve, to start at the beginning of the story, with a dog called Rockford, which is an excellent doggy name, and a boy called Moog, well, that's quite an unusual name.
It is unusual, yeah, but that was sort of the point. We wanted an unusual name and one that could be a boy or a girl. We thought it'd be nice if it sounded musical. So Moog is a musical instrument. It's a kind of synthesizer, keyboard synthesizer, and it makes weird noises like this.
Thank you, Steve. That's very nice. So, did you know there was a musical instrument called a Moog? I wonder what other instruments would make good names. Maybe Moog has a cousin called Trumpet. Anyway, moving on to Battersea, where our story begins. And Matthew, you've got a special reason for basing the story there, haven't you?
I do, yes. Well, Battersea, it's in South London, in England by the River Thames, and I used to live there. And there are 3 famous things in Battersea, like it says in the story. And they're all pretty remarkable, like Battersea Power Station, which is huge, made out of 6 million bricks, and with 4 massive chimneys 100 metres high. And because when it was burning coal back in the 1960s, it was so warm nearby, hundreds of stray cats used to live there. And speaking of stray cats, just around the corner, there's Battersea Dogs and Cats Home, which is probably the world's most famous animal rescue centre, and which helps find new homes for hundreds of dogs and cats every year. And then, of course, there's Battersea Park, where, as you've just heard, strange and magical things can happen.
But there's another important place in the story across the Thames from Battersea, and that's the Natural History Museum, where Moog and his uncle went the day before our adventure begins.
Well, of course, there are museums all over the world, but this particular one of the most famous, is the Natural History Museum in London. It's enormous. It sort of feels slightly like a cathedral when you first go inside, where you can learn all about animals and plants and life on Earth and the Earth itself.
Now, the Natural History Museum is almost 150 years old, and it was created by a man named Richard Owen.
Yes, Richard Owen. He was a very famous scientist, a biologist, and a rather unusual looking one too, if you've seen any pictures of him. Anyway, apart from founding the Natural History Museum, we also remember him for something else. Does anyone know what that is? Well, he was the man who came up with the word dinosaur, which in the Greek language means terrible lizard.
Like the wonky dinosaur Moog and his uncle built?
Well, sort of. Anyway, Richard Owen founded the Natural History Museum and filled it full of extraordinary things from the natural world. Some of the animals you could still see in the wild, but others, like the dinosaurs, were extinct.
Now, a lot of you will know what extinct means, but for anyone who doesn't, extinct means a type of animal or plant that is no longer alive on Earth. Used to be here, but now isn't. Extinct animals can be creatures that lived a long time ago, like the dinosaurs, who we learn about through fossils, bones. But there are others who became extinct quite recently.
And this is where we get back to Richard Owen. You see, when he designed the museum with his architect, a man called Alfred Waterhouse, they decorated it in a special way.
They certainly did. There's a great big double front door at the museum, and once you go in through the grand entrance hall, if you turn to the right, built into the walls and the pillars and the ceiling of the museum, there are statues and paintings of all sorts of creatures, but all of them are extinct. Dinosaurs and all sorts of ancient forgotten creatures and plants.
But what about the living animals?
I'm glad you asked that. If you walk into the grand entrance hall and turn left, look up and on the walls and ceilings, that's where you'll find them. Pictures and statues of living creatures and plants we know today. That's how Richard Owen built the museum. It's like it's alive.
And talking of amazing creatures, there's another character we've just met in our story, and that's the Cocklebur Ick. And to tell you about Cocklebur Icks, we need to tell you about cockleburs.
Creatures' secret. Creatures' secrets.
Creatures' secrets.
Creatures' secrets. Creatures' secrets.
What? Creatures' secrets.
Ooh.
The story of Velcro. A long time ago, over 80 years in fact, a scientist from Switzerland named George de Maistre was out for a walk in the hills with his dog. And he noticed that the dog's fur was covered in tiny round seeds called burrs from a plant called the cocklebur. Now he was curious about how these burrs were able to stick to his dog's fur so well. So he looked at them under a microscope and saw that they had tiny hooks on them that were able to catch onto the loops in the dog's fur. And this gave George an idea. He thought, what if we could make something that works like these burrs, but for other things? That's exactly what he sounded like. So he went to his lab and he started experimenting. He tried to make a material that had hooks on one side and loops on the other, just like the burrs on the cocklebur plant. And he tried many different things, but nothing worked quite right. And then finally, after many months of hard work, he had a breakthrough.
At last! It works! It works!
He discovered he could make little hooks out of plastic and little loops out of nylon. And when he put them together, they stuck to each other, just like the burrs on the cocklebur plant. And that's how Velcro was invented. One of the first uses was in space, for astronauts to do up their spacesuits. But you've probably used Velcro fasteners on your shoes. They make a really brilliant noise when you rip them too. Velcro is an example of biomimicry. That means when we look at nature and try and learn from it to solve problems we have. It's amazing how something as small as a seed on a plant can inspire such a big invention as Velcro. Just imagine what other amazing secrets there are out there in the world, just waiting for someone, maybe you, to discover them. But of course, in our story, there's a creature that's just like a cocklebur seed, small and sticky, and that's the Cocklebur Ick.
So we're nearly at the end of this first part of Stories, Science and Secrets. But there's so much more waiting for you in the next episodes, where we'll be finding out how we're learning more than ever from the wonders of the natural world. But for now, it's goodbye from...
Is that a cat?
Yes.
Yes, that's Kenny.
That's a brilliantly comedy cat. That's someone... Is the cat drumming?
Sorry, I'm going to get him out.
The cat's got a great sense of rhythm.
He's under the sofa, setting off fireworks. Come on, out.
Yeah, it was all going so well too.
He's inside. Kenny. You've been listening to Stories, Science and Secrets by Rockford's Rock Opera. But now it's time to say goodbye from Steve.
Goodbye.
Matthew. Kenny the cat. And me, Elaine. Goodbye.